and it's after 7 now. And tonight is Dr. Lamb's night. He's going to, first of all, welcome. We thank you for being here on our third coaching session night. And as Dr. Revis and I said on Tuesday night, wow, it's hard to believe that we are already completing week 3. It's going by so quickly. But thank you for being here. You're in for a treat. Dr. Lamb is going to share some very interesting new survey information, how to do surveys with Qualtrics, and he and Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Crawford are going to share with you some really unique information that you probably are not aware of, most of it, about EVAAS. So Dr. Lamb, I'm turning it completely over to you for the rest of the session.
About Qualtrics first. Okay, let me get out of that one. All right, so as I told you last week, when we get to the APTEL, which is the second of our evidences that we'll cover in the second half of your course, that you're going to have within the school. People make the mistake, and you know, myself included, before you become educated on the subject, they think teacher empowerment and leadership is one phrase. It's actually 2 things. There's teacher empowerment and teacher leadership. Teacher empowerment is being empowered as a leader in your classroom, as measured by using best practices, Robert Marzano's best practices, which is what the North Carolina NESIS system is based on. Is, you know, teacher evaluation is based on teachers. Teacher leadership is the roles you play, the leadership roles you play as a teacher throughout the building. Now, we'll have to check for see if teachers are using best practices. Can't survey for that because that's an IQ test. If you ask teachers, all of them will say, yep, I use best practices. So you'll have to do some walkthroughs, and we'll talk about that. But you can survey for teacher leadership positions. What are teacher leadership positions? Well, it's real simple. Here are the 5 things that Todd Whitaker says are teacher leadership activities. I've got them on the screen. They kind of go in a descending order in terms of relative importance and higher level. So I've got them in reverse order here. So the first thing that's a leadership position for a teacher that we're going to survey for when we do the APTEL is teacher has input on professional development offerings at school. That means that you teach other teachers. Are you one of those that teaches either at a PLC or in front of the entire faculty how you do a certain thing in your classroom? Teacher plays a role in the development of school improvement plan. That means you're on the school improvement team, and you represent that from an academic area. That's what you're learning right now, is how to lead a PLC in an academic area. Do you do that? Do you either lead a PLC or are you on, which obviously feeds the school improvement plan, that data that you come up with and those recommendations, or are you on that team itself? But either one of those, leading a PLC or being on the school improvement team, do you? Teacher plays a role in school-wide policy. That's generally curriculum. And do you serve on the school-wide curriculum committee, which again is a function of the school improvement team. Teacher has input in development or management of the school budget. You'll learn about budgeting next semester with me. You have input in that. And then the 5th of the teacher leadership roles in the school is teacher plays a role in the hiring process. You get to sit in on interviews, ask questions, and have a vote on who your colleagues are going to be. These are the 5 areas that we're going to survey for when you do your APTEL. Now, so there's that document. So what you're going to do, as I showed you last week, here in the menu in Web Connect, where you find your email and Blackboard, and I just pull mine up to the top in the favorites area here, you're going to see Qualtrics first-time users, and then Qualtrics sign in. You need to go in and establish your account. You use your Gardner Web email to do that, and it's free. We've already paid for it. And then you go to Qualtrics first-time users, and when you do that, you'll come to a home screen. Now, you won't have all these things that I have because I do this every day. But when you get here, What's important to note, and I'm going to cover this again later, what's important to note is the menu and what causes things to happen are these three little hashtags right here. You notice when I hover over that, it says main menu. If you can remember that, you got it whipped. That's the part that matters right there. Right next to the XM are those three hashtags. That's your menu. All right. And so after we click menu, we're going to go to projects. Now I've got hundreds, but you will create a project. See this blue button over here, top right? And we're going to do a survey. And let's get started. This is going to be a teacher leadership survey. Just that quick. Create project. And here we go. And so it's going to be a 5-question multiple choice. And it's just going to be a yes, no. Do you get to do these things or not? The only trick that we have to remember is we're going to do a multiple choice with 2 answer choices, and we're going to leave them in a vertical alignment like this. And so choice 1 is no. Choice 2, always the negative goes first. We don't want a maybe. So remove that choice. It will automatically. So yes, no. We're going to have 5 questions now. When you set up your first one, before you start putting your actual question in here, you copy this 4 times, but you copy this one and you copy the next one. You won't have to do anything else other than you've already set it up one time. Come over here to the 3 dots right here, click on the 3 dots and just hit copy. Now you have 2 of those. Copy the next one so it'll number them correctly. Copy, copy, copy. Now you have 5. You have 5 questions. Now, simply click on to write the question, come back to your document, copy the first one. Move that out of the way. Back to my survey, Control V. Easy peasy. And so what I'm going to do on these is it's going to try to give me more responses after I remove them. One time, it should stop. See, it's trying to tell you what to do, but you have to fight it a little bit. And so we do that. Click on the next one, and I'll do this right quick. Teacher plays a role in the plan. Copy. And that. And that. Now, since you are not a faculty member, it's now done. So what you're going to have to do now, I'll publish this one right quick. Look at there, expert. Publish. What you're going to have to do now, I can copy that link and anybody, I can send that to anybody and they'll take the survey. Now it's not going to let you distribute it like that. So what you're going to have to do, I'll go ahead and copy the link. What you're going to have to do is close with the survey. You're going to have to close the survey, go back to your hashtags and go back to projects. You're going to close the survey and there it's going to be right there at the end of the line right here. These 3 dots at the end of the line with the survey closed. You're going to collaborate. That means share, and you're going to share it with me, D. Lamb. And then I will publish and send it back to you, copy it, send it back to you, and you'll be able to distribute it. Or I can send you the link and you can, but you need to have a copy of it so you'll get the results at your school. So you just do D. Lamb at Gardner Webb. And add selected invite, say, and it will come to me. I'll get it. I'll send it back to you. See, it just went bing. You heard that? I'll send it back to you. When I send it back to you, I'll have it activated where you can then distribute it to your faculty. When you go in, it will give you the results like this one from Tanner Jarrett, one of my doctorals. See, he's got 15 responses. I can see what he's got, and he can see, and he can also run his statisticals to see how many said yes and no, if that's what it was. So it's a pretty simple process. I'll cover it again later. You'll have this video where you can go back and do this, but this is the way that you will do that. Now, the reason why we do that, let me stop my share. The reason why we do that is two reasons. Number one, you have to have faculty approval if you're putting out a survey from Gardner Webb. That's one of the things. And number two, we have to make sure your survey is validated. But this will get you in the habit of using this. It's your account. You can do whatever you want. It won't let you share unless it goes through me. But you can build all the surveys. You won't share them with me. If it's something else, I'll get an email and I'll turn it right around, and you can do a number of things at your school with it. And I will validate your surveys to make sure that your results will be reliable and valid. But this is how we do this. We're trying to get away from Survey Monkey and those kinds of things, because number one, we don't know what you're putting out, and number two, we don't know if they're valid or not. You know, just because you create a survey doesn't mean that it meets all the seven different types of validity. And so in the era of fake news and people making up their own data and things of that nature, we've doubled down again, especially in the MELS program. That's one of our research initiatives, is that we want to make sure that you understand that data has to be both valid and reliable. That validity speaks to how valid your instrument is. Does it measure what you say it measures? And again, we went to Todd Whitaker, the expert in teacher leadership. We're using his survey, so we know it's valid. That's why you saw that expert rating. You didn't think I was that smart. It recognized that, oh, that's Todd Whitaker's survey. This is the standard. But when you build one of your own, how do we know that it's valid, that it's measuring what you say it's going to? But we're making sure that you understand that when you're in a position of leadership, your data must be valid, collected with a valid instrument, and must be reliable. That's the notion here. Reliable means, is it the same everywhere? Does it work the same from Murphy to Manio? Have we followed the protocol and how that we have used this survey?
So Dr. Lamb, so
that's the notion.
You're telling me I'm a 601 student. You're telling me I can't do Survey Monkey, and you're telling me I can't create one on Google Docs. That's what you're telling me, right? I'm telling you that I want you to use this. Okay, that's what I wanted to stress again. If you do a survey, and you will have to do a survey, Qualtrics is what you have to use.
Have to use for us in 601. That is correct. We want you to get in the habit of using this rather than the other. Now, if we have some kind of a technical breakdown and we have to do the other, never say never, but we want you to get in the habit of the whole time that you're in this program and you survey even your PLC members, or you survey somebody, you're going to be doing a good bit of surveying, needs assessment surveys. Get in the habit of using this.
And if it does divert to anything other than Qualtrics, you will be instructed by your instructors per Dr. Lamb that you can do that. But at this point, it is Qualtrics. Okay.
Yeah. We want you to do that. Now, please understand that the university bought these and paid for this for you to have these accounts for a reason. This is the standard now in all graduate programs. When you come back and do your doctorate with us, this is how you will do your survey methodology in your doctoral program, and your dissertation. You will use Qualtrics. We're doubling down on trying to make sure that our data is clean, that our instruments are valid, that we're doing the right things for the right reasons. Now, the hot topic in schools right now is ChatGPT. It's been on our radar since November. We've actually been using it a little bit to create some things. you know, that's one of the things that everybody is, you know, is all alarmed about now. I'm not alarmed. You're not going to be able to fake your work with us, because you got to go out and actually do this stuff. You have to write up what you did. And if it doesn't generate any artifacts, we'll know you didn't do it. So that's not a problem for us. But again, the whole notion here is that people are making stuff up a lot now. We want to make sure that you're using the right kind of technology, research-based technology, the right way, and that you aren't falsifying data or somebody writing it for you or doing something of that nature. We want to make sure that we're clean, because I know that y'all are doing the work. You need to get credit for the work that you do. And you need to learn to be a professional in the business. You know that there's an issue right now with the Chapel Hill superintendent about plagiarizing her dissertation. It matters in our business that you did things the right way. Now, I don't know whether she plagiarized or not for me to decide that. But in our business, you got to make sure that your data is clean and that you've done things the right way. That it's your original work, and if not, it's problems. This is the kind of stuff that matters now. Now, full disclosure, Gardner-Webb is not an R1 research university, but we have adopted many of the practices. And that's when the new president came in 3 years ago, said, by Qualtrics, I want students using Qualtrics in graduate studies.
Dr. Lamb,
Which is what all R1 universities
may I make a request, if you can, or consider it like you've done the short, I know it's on this session for tonight, but like you've done the short.
Yeah, I've got Qualtrics notes and videos. I already have those in the can.
Will you send that to us?
I
so
will.
We can put it in there? Okay, thank you.
I will do that. I have a set of notes that goes with using Qualtrics. I have videos already. I do this for the entire graduate school. And so not just the College of Ed. So I by default, I have become the Qualtrics expert. Well, I'm telling you, you're hunting help if I'm your expert, but that's another story. And so, so yes, I did this. I think Dr. Revis might have had to set through this back in August. I did this for the grad faculty back in August. I did it again in October and November and December and January. I do a session about every month. I do all the doctoral students. So yes, I've got buku notes and videos on how to do this. That's why I went through this so fast tonight. But the important thing is this is another tool for your toolbox. This is another one of those skill sets that you need to develop as a school administrator. This will stand you in good stead, not only in the principalship, but when you get to the central office as well. And when you're ready to get your doctorate, when you're in the central office or ready to go to the central office, this will stand you in good stead as well, that you will understand what these things mean. All right, so that's Qualtrics for the evening. I'll make sure those materials are available for you. Again, I didn't send them tonight because we're not using them tonight. If you want to go in and play a while, that'd be great when you establish your account. You're going to need them in 3 or 4 weeks, but I'll make sure that I'll get them to your professors tonight. Now, let's talk about EVAAS. What is EVAAS? Anybody want to volunteer? What is EVAAS? EVAAS. Now, for those of you in South Carolina, some of your districts use EVAAS, but the ones that don't use SLO, student learning outcomes. And so what that is a value added. That's what the V is, value added. How much value does a teacher add to a student as measured by the standard of a year's growth for that student? I've already told you, we have 2 experts with us tonight, Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Crawford. Dr. Crawford got 3.5 years of growth in his group last year. Unheard of, incredible. But how do we determine a year or so? What we're looking at, you as a teacher, or how do we know which kids they should be teaching when we do our master schedule, which we're going to do next semester? How do we know who ought to be teaching what? Do we just always go with whoever's been there the longest gets to teach the most difficult courses? Like when I became a high school teacher, I had to teach, I had to teach biology for idiots when I first started. I had all the booger readers. because I was the low man on the totem pole. The guy that had been there the longest got to teach chemistry and physics. Should it have been that way? In my case, probably. But if you want best results, no. You know, it's about talent. It's not about time. You want the teachers who are the best teachers with certain kinds of kids teaching those courses. That gives you the best chance of success. If I work best with the lower end learners, that's who I ought to be teaching. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to develop me to be able to teach all students, but I've got to make some decisions about who's going to teach what, where, and when I fill in all those squares on that master schedule. So when we master schedule, again, we start with federal law first, then state law, local board policy, but then number 4, that's my 4th finger, my ring finger. You see my wedding band on it. That 4th one is performance data. And that performance is not just NESIS evaluation data, you know, coming to your room and evaluating your lessons, but your performance data of your kids in terms of not on an absolute scale, like comparative account growth. Did you grow this kid or this group of kids at least one academic year? So that's how EVAAS works now. Let me share my screen. I've got a couple of documents I know that are going to be shared with you tonight, and I had them, so I'm stealing their thunder, but I'll try not to do too much of that. So right here, what I used to see, that this is how, when they changed the format for that, but this is one of the documents that you'll have access to. And let's see what else I've got over here. I can close that one, and I want to get out of that one. And here, let me close some of this so I can get back to where I was. Here it is. And so it tells you education value added assessment system, a custom software system that provides progress over time, identifies opportunities for growth, and provides predictions for future success. Okay, so you can read all about it. Here are all the things that come with it. There's 3 functions that it allows us to do. But it's all based on children making a year's growth. Well, let me stop my share. So we have to have a starting point and an ending point, a pre and a post, right? If we're going to measure if a kid made a year's growth or not. Well, what is the ending point? We got to have a prediction score that if the kid gets this score on this test, he's shown a year's growth. Where does that prediction score come from? See, that's the one that teachers will argue you down over, is that these kids are easier to get growth than those kids. No, all of that is controlled for in the algorithm that is EVAAS, or student learning outcomes. Now, understanding that private companies manage these things, they're not going to tell you what their algorithm is or what the variables that enter into their linear regression is. I do this for a living, so I'm going to tell you what the variables in the linear regression are. Now, we all have to be grown people tonight before we start this, because I'm going to say some things that might hurt your feelings, that you might take offense to if you don't understand what I am trying to tell you. So for 20 years, data was collected on student standardized state testing. For 20 years, it's now been close to 40, but they collected it for 20 years. They dumped it all into one huge database with probably 50 variables that they knew about a kid. And they did an analysis of variance. And so what they found is there are 10 variables that contain the variance in a kid's test scores. 10 things contribute to this test score that a child makes. 10 things. They looked at probably 50, but only 10 of them actually affect the score that the kids make. So here's how it goes. Let me share my screen and we'll get down to the nitty gritty of tonight's presentation. All right. Evaluated growth model, teachers are evaluated on the basis where 85% of their students make a year of growth. Schools in turns are evaluated on whether 85% of their teachers make growth, and that's for school growth. Again, analysis of variance was performed on standardized test scores for 20 plus years to determine how much of the variance in standardized test scores, the dependent variable or y, can be attributed to a particular independent variable. And so the linear regression is like this. All of those, if you add all of those independent variables together, you come up with a dependent variable, which is the predicted score that a kid should show for growth. So here's how the sausage is made right here. These are the 10 variables that affect a kid's score based on percent of variance. Race is 30% of a kid's test score. Mother's education, 15. Father's income, 15. Teacher, 10. School district, 5. School, 5. Grade, 5. Age, 5. Gender, 5. Previous test scores, 5. Those are all the things that matter, and they're the only things that matter in determining what a kid's test score will be. And so we use this regression equation to build our algorithm for a predicted score for a kid that shows a year's growth. Those are the 10 things. Now, they may vary a half a point one way or the other from year to year, but this is what they are. And so now we convert that to an algorithm. So here's how that works. So this is an actual kid, and we'll take his variables. Jamar is a 3rd grade student in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. His independent variables are, he's black. So that means the algorithm, he gets 20 out of 30 points. If he's white, it'd be 30 out of 30. If he were Hispanic, it'd be 15 out of 30. That's not racist. That's from historical test scores. That's the way it perks out. His mother has less than a high school diploma, so he gets 5 out of be 15. You can see how that would work. She never went to school, it'd be 0. No father in home, so that's 0 out of 15. Father's income in excess of 150 would be 15 on a scale of 15, 0 to 15. Why is that? Why is mother education, father's income so important? If dad makes enough money, mom stays at home. Who does lap time with kids and read to them? That'd be their mother. Teacher, we always assume the teacher at 10. See, what we're trying to isolate is this variable right here. So we assume 10. CMS is a high wealth district, so 5 out of 5. A low wealth district would be 2 out of 5. Billingsville, the school he was at, was a takeover school, low performing school, so that's 0. If he'd been at a high growth school, it'd been 5. Grade 5, he had not been a repeater, so he got 5 out of 5 on that. However, he was 9 years old in the 3rd grade because he'd been developmentally delayed, so he got 3 out of 5 points there. Gender, he got 5 because he was male and it was a math test. If it'd been a female, would have got 4 due to difference in gender. Now, if it'd been reversed, if it'd been reading, the male would have got 4 and the female would have got 5. So his and previous scores too, he was not on grade level according to his M class data coming out of 2nd grade. So here is his algorithm: 20 plus 5 plus 0 plus 10, 5, 0, 5, 3, 5, 2, 55. He's got to score 55% of the number of raw score items on that test to show growth. So 3rd grade math test, there's 180 questions, multiply it by 55%. He's got to get 99 of the 180 questions right to show a year's growth. That's the way it works. They don't just pull that score out of the air that's a gross score. It is calculated again using a linear regression right here. And then that's converted to an algorithm right here in terms of, if you're this, you get this many of the possible points. Again, race possible is 30. If you're black, you get 20. You're white, you get 30. If you're Hispanic, you get 15. That's the way it works. And then you put all those together, you add them all together, You multiply that percentage by the number of raw items, 180 on the test, and that's how you determine what a kid's score is. So the only thing that can cause a kid that would cause a kid not to make their score is teacher. That's the only thing in there that we control is teacher. If the teacher doesn't add her value or his value, kid won't make grade. So this is not about the kid. This is about the teacher. Is this teacher providing value? That's the whole notion here. And so that matters. But as you're going to see, as Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Crawford, the experts, talk to you tonight, every teacher doesn't get the same results with every group of kids. It's not smart to give a teacher who doesn't get results with high kids, the group of high kids, just because she's been there the longest. Your job is to get performance out of your school. If you don't, they'll get somebody else. You always, of all the dumb things you hear me say every week, write this one down. Your name is on the door, not on the deed. And if you don't produce any results, you used to be principal there. That's the way the world works. As a first grade teacher that I had one time used to tell the kids all the time, suck it up, buttercup. Life's hard. She used to tell first graders that all the time. But she was right. Great teacher, Linda Curtis, never will forget her, was a great teacher. But, this is the way the world works. The world is hard. Remember, you're now preparing for a job where you don't teach a soul. Your only value is that you get value, or that you get results out of the adults that you work with. Your job now is working with adults, not kids. And there's some tough decisions out there that have to be made. You can't truly lead a school, and I'll hush and let the experts talk about EVAAS. You can't truly lead a school until you can tell somebody on your faculty, you can't work here anymore. You're a wonderful person, but you just can't teach. We can't just keep good people around. We have to have people who actually can teach. Now, as you're learning this semester how to disaggregate your test scores, the second part, you're going to learn how to build a growth plan to try to build the people you got into the people you need them to be. But if they can't do that, you got to know that they're not getting results, and that you're doing professional development and they're either not participating. And it doesn't matter if they can't improve or won't improve. All that matters is that they don't improve. We can't get into intent. If you don't improve, and we've been working with you and you don't improve and your kids don't grow, we can't keep you. It's even if you're a good person, we just can't keep you. That's not what our job is, to make sure that we get achievement, that kids learn. To close on my part tonight, again, thank you for letting me be with you. What do they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. What do we do in schools? We teach kids. That is our core competency. Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Crawford, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb. You're hard to follow, as always. I'm just going to share my screen for just a minute. So I am not as smart as Dr. Lamb, so I don't have all this complicated explanation about EVAAS. I'm just going to give you the easy, like what you really need to sort of understand. And some of you may already understand this 1000%, and some of you may not. And so we're just going to go through the basics. So in EVAAS, you get a growth indicator score. And in the state of North Carolina, to get your school report card grade, 80% of your school report card grade is based on your student proficiency. 20% is based on your EVAAS growth score. So this is important. And there have been talk for years that be more balanced, but it's been 80-20 for a really long time. And here's the thing. I was talking with a principal today. You have to have a 55 to get a C on your school report card. And there are all kinds of penalties for D and F schools. And the person I was talking to today, their school with just proficiency would be a D. But because they get enough growth out of their students, that 20% pulls it, has been pulling it up for them to exceed that 55. So growth is significant. If my reading growth last year had been what my math growth had been, it would have been phenomenal. So it really makes a huge difference. And lots of things are weighted on this. Your salary as a principal is determined by your EVAAS growth. Yes, it does in the state of North Carolina. In fact, the State Board of Education just changed the rule. It used to be on a 3-year rotating thing. Now it is every single year your principal salary is determined based on whether you did not meet growth expectations, or you did meet, or you exceeded. So every year your salary can vary as much as $20,000. So try to budget on that. So is this important to you? Yes, it is. So let's talk about EVAAS for just a minute, and let's just think about a number line. So you have the standard error in here. So sort of look at this as a bell curve. You know what falls under the bell curve. So what's in the middle from, I'm going to say +2 to -2, but it's actually +1.99 to -1.99. And that's that area under the middle of the bell curve. And so they will say that this is 1-year growth. They have to look at standard errors to make sure they're being fair and that it's statistically significant. And so that is like your 1 year's growth. 0 being the 0 line, being the actual 1 year. Now, anything that comes out statistically in your growth index, and when you're looking at EVAAS, it's important to do 2 things. And you'll have to ask your principal to see this. It's important to do 2 things. Look at the colors. If it's blue, it exceeds. If it's green, it meets. If it's red, it did not meet. Look at the colors. A growth index aligns with this color. Now, they have growth measures in there that don't always align with the colors, but you're looking at the growth index. This is what's important to you. If you have a 2+ or higher, you're considered that you have exceeded growth. If you have a -2 or less, you did not meet growth expectations. So this talks about, and this is just from the EVAAS, about how that growth index is calculated. It's a growth measure divided by the standard error. The calculation yields a robust measure of growth for groups of students that reflects both the growth and the amount of evidence. All index values are the same scale and can be compared fairly across years, grades, and subjects throughout the state. So when you're reviewing this with teachers, if they say, well, you know, we were out with COVID. Well, so was everybody else in the state. Oh, that was the year we had the new test. Well, everyone else in the state had that same new test. So those are, you just have to sort of help people move past that. And it's really hard to get past the paradigm of proficiency versus growth. You cannot be proficient and you can have exceeded growth beautifully. You can be 99%, you can have a 99th percentile. You can be as proficient as you want to be. You could have 100% of the children in your school be proficient. Expectations. So it's really hard to sort of change your paradigm and to be able to think about 2 different things. But this is what it is. So when you look at EVAAS, you'll see that this is sort of new over the last few years. It used to just be blue, green, and red. But now they have some nuances in the green. So the dark green means you're between that 1 and 2. The medium is between -1 +1, and then the light green is that -1 to -1.99. And then anything 2 standard errors or below, of course, is going to show up as red. There are lots of reports, and we have more reports this year than we have ever had, and that has been so exciting. In fact, new this year is we can see individual student growth, and we have never had the ability to do that before. So we have been looking at that a lot lately. It's very pivotal because if I'm a student and I had a plus 30, then my teacher really better be on me, because I have set the bar very high for myself. So I'm going to have to continue on that trajectory or do better. And that's going to be a lot. But if I'm a student with a minus 30, my teacher can probably sort of pull me along pretty quickly and help me be able to get that pulled up. And so it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to look at, but it's so good and it's such rich information for you. And if you have the opportunity to go to any of DPI's EVAAS sessions, please ask your administrator if you can attend, because they are very valuable. Good work sessions. So one thing you can do in EVAAS is you can look at growth by student groups. So here you go. So this is by subject area. I just did it this way, by student group. So you see here were the academically gifted children. This was 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. So growth measure, remember, that's not what we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at that growth index. And so you'll see that in this situation, the academically gifted children had a plus 2.92, which means overall grades 3, 4, and 5 combined, they exceeded. 3rd grade met, 4th grade and 5th grade exceeded. You can look at the economically disadvantaged children. They met. You can look at the different grade levels there. You can see the ranges of that met status. Hispanic children, you can see how they did. So this helps you really, and when you're looking at your data, can help you target those subgroups and those areas in which you may want to look at when you're identifying your most pressing need in task 2. So if you are in elementary school in the state of North Carolina, your school-wide EVAAS, now getting back to what you're going to get paid on as the principal, is measured by math, reading, and science. That's grades 3, 4, and 5. Now, in grade 3, you only get EVAAS for reading because they take a reading BOG, beginning of grade test, in 3rd grade. They do not take a math BOG. So at the end of the year, they measure from BOG to end of grade for reading. In 4th grade, you get reading and math. And then in 5th grade science, you get reading. In 5th grade, you get reading, math, and science. So those are 6 test scores across your school that determines your school-wide EVAAS. So let's think about this. 3rd grade reading is 1/6 of your school's accountability growth. 4th grade is 1/3. 5th grade is 1/2. Now, in the state of North Carolina, we have class size limitations in grades K through 3. In grades 4 and 5, we're allocated 1 teacher for every 25 students. So sometimes in grades 4 and 5, you might end up with classes of 30, 31, 32, whatever. So when I'm having to decide, is 4th grade or 5th grade going to have a class of 30? Which group's going to have a class of 30 and which group's going to have a class of 23? You better know the 4th graders are going to have classes of 30 and the 5th graders are going to have classes of 23, because that 1-to-1 ratio matters. And when my 5th graders have 3 tests that count, that matters. So that's one thing that I always look at and think about. So that decision making, when you're thinking about and you're looking at the historical EVAAS of your teachers, if you have a teacher who has you want your strongest EVAAS is where? In 5th grade. They're going to give 3 tests in their self-contained classrooms that are going to count for you. This is where you're going to want your friends. In 3rd grade, we were talking about this the other day. I said, hey, y'all got a teacher assistant and she's not tutoring anybody in the mornings. This happened this week. Well, we thought maybe she could do some math. I said, you better be doing some reading, because you need to be up in your EVAAS. Their proficiency wasn't bad. It was the EVAAS. You better be getting on the reading. So they're on that now. In EVAAS, you can pull up these decision dashboard. This is called the report's called decision dashboard. And you'll see now, this is, I just snipped a picture of math. So you don't have this in third grade, remember, because we didn't have a BOG in third grade math. And this shows you the quintiles, the groups. So your lowest performing, your mid-low, your mid are the 3s, your mid-highs are the 4, and your highs are the 5. Now, just because they're the highs, that doesn't mean it's necessarily your AIG group. They may or may not be AIG. This is just those performances for those students. So in this situation, again, look at the colors. You can see that in the lowest and the mid-low, this particular year, in this particular grade with this particular subject, we did not have enough students in the low and mid-low for it to be statistically significant, so it was not reported out. There has to be a certain number there for it to be statistically significant. And if there's not, then it's not reported. So those weren't reported. Our mid students made a 3. Our mid-high students exceeded growth. Our mid students met growth. Our mid-high students exceeded, and our highest students met. So that was good information for us, because if most of these children went to AIG math, then what was happening in AIG math? What was happening with the mid-highs that maybe weren't going to AIG? So what do we need to do to replicate that and help those highest children grow? So that's that. And then here's a great thing to do. So look at your teachers and look at them over the years. Look at their quintiles, and you have all this in their data. So how did this teacher do with the mid-lows? The lower children, but she's really not addressing those needs of those middle children. So you got 2 options at this point. You can grow her and talk to her about what she needs to do with those middle children, and you can train her and you can work with her, or you can try to sort of avoid putting those middle children with her because she's not being highly effective with them. Look at teacher B. She is so effective. She has exceeded growth over the time, over the years with these mid to lows. This is a great place to put your mid to low children to help make more than 1 year's growth, make more than 1 year's growth. And our low children have to make more than 1 year so that they can eventually catch up and not be those low children anymore. So this is a great teacher who can really work low with them, but hey, I might not really want to give her a lot of AIG children because that's just not really her jam right there. I mean, she did okay with them, but she sure didn't have the results that she had with those lowers. So that is just, you have to create that own little chart on your own. That means going into each teacher's historical data and looking at that, but it's well worth your time, effort, and energy. Now, this is an interesting, this is the only one I've ever had this way, and I'm glad I snipped it when I did, because I hadn't had another one just like this. So it'll give you these multi-years when you look at the teacher data. You can, as a principal, you can see your teacher's individual data. So we see this teacher, this was 2017, 2018, 2019. You get a multi-year trend. Well, she met, but her multi-year trend is did not meet. Now that's very hard to get a teacher, especially this teacher, right, to understand this. So a multi-year trend is not a simple average. A multi-year trend is that each child, all those data points are being put in there together, and each child is being counted as one. So it's not a 17, 18, and 19 average. It's everybody is counting as one. And the more data points you have, the more valid and reliable your data are. So as a result, you get a more reliable outcome of really the effectiveness that this teacher is having. So her overall effectiveness was here, and it would have been worse than that had she not had the 2019 scores. And so that just goes to show that over the years, her collective efficacy is just not there. Growth is just not there. So that's important too, and that's an important conversation to have. It's important for you to be in classrooms, really sort of know where you think that that one little thing. You can't overwhelm them with everything, but what's that one thing that you think could really make a difference? In this person's case, I said to this person, I can sit in your room and not know, like, I don't know what the children are supposed to be learning. And oftentimes the children ask me, hey, what am I supposed to do on this activity? Because they don't even know. So besides the fact that we didn't know what we're supposed to be learning, we don't know what we're supposed to be doing on this activity. So we've had this battle, over the years. And then today we are doing this person's PDP, and all her children are green and blue. Everybody's proficient, middle of the year, praise, right? And she said, I have finally told them, hey, when we do this in Haggerty, we're doing this because this is how we do this phonemic segmentation on our test. And she said, we were practicing this. This is exactly what we're doing on the test. And she's been very clear and explicit. And every one of her children were proficient. And I said, hey, that's a clear learning goal. They know what you're asking them to do, and they know what it is that they're going to do with it. Finally, we're getting it. Yay. So I'm excited to see her EVAAS this year because she's great. So that's just sort of how, and things don't happen overnight. And I'm going to tell you, you have to stick with it and work with it. But so that's just a little about EVAAS on a much more elementary level than what Dr. Lamb explained. That'll sort of help you get through things. Dr. Crawford.
I wanted to say before Dr. Crawford, do you see now why Dr. Hamilton has a high-performing school? She's an amazing principal.
Okay, so feeling good about myself. Let me go ahead and get started. Good evening, folks. And I say that because, again, I'm 5 months into a new
Dr. Crawford,
school.
pardon me. I'm sorry. I was muted there. Dr. Hamilton is a great principal. I want to reiterate one point that she made. Because this is one of those things that teachers hit you with. Teachers, again, you've got to explain to them, that score wasn't just pulled out of the air or some other part of your body, that there is an actual way that their growth score was calculated. But the other thing, again, pardon me, Dr. Crawford, I'm going to be a lot more blunt. She's a very nice person. Proficiency is about who you get as a school. Growth is about what you do with them. See, you're going to have teachers that argue with you, well, all my kids were proficient, but they walked in that way. They just got dumber the longer they stayed with you because you didn't get any growth out of them. So proficiency is about who you get. We all know that every kid don't walk in the building at the same level. Proficiency is about who you get. Growth's about what you did with them as a teacher. And sometimes, and that's what Dr. Hamilton's talking about, sometimes you have to be blunt about that because teachers will try to argue you down. Or all my kids were proficient. Well, they were all that way when you got them. What did you do with them? So that's what again, these are arguments that you've got to understand this stuff because teachers are going to try to argue you down that I should be teaching them, or I'm really doing better than you said I am, or I don't believe that your evaluation reflects my, I'm a great dancer. And so, you should give me a good evaluation. You may be, but we're talking about, can you teach kids or not? So these are the things that you've got to learn as an administrator so that you can get people to understand we're trying to help you get better. But we can't help you get better if you want to argue with us and claim that things are better than they really are. Dr. Crawford, another expert in the field. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go right ahead.
No, it's all good. I don't know if I can follow Dale Lamb and Robin Hamilton at the same time, but I'll do my best. A couple of things I want to show you. So first, again, the school I have taken over is literally probably the exact opposite of what Dr. Hamilton has been able to build in her time down there in Wilmington. I have walked into an F school with a 30% proficiency rating. And on July 1st, I walked into 17 vacancies. So that is what I am trying to deal with and adjust. So a couple of things I want to share with you. I've done this now with elementary, middle, and high school. So pretty much know the struggles that you are going to get at each level. And one of the things I want to tell you is that kid placement with teachers matters. I'm getting ready to show you something from a presentation done in 2020 by DPI. And even though the data is from 2012, it doesn't matter what year the data was from. And as a matter of fact, similar reports have been compiled over time in different states. And one of the things that happens is, and so if you can see my screen, if you look here, this is so this talks about teacher placement. So if you didn't know, if I am a kindergarten teacher in Robin Hamilton's class, and Robin Hamilton is a high-performing blue teacher, okay? And if Danny Stedman is a student in Dale Lamb's class, and Dale Lamb has been struggling over the last couple of years, if Danny and I walk into the same kindergarten or first grade class in roughly the same spot, if I get the high performing teacher and Danny gets the low performing teacher, this is what happens over time. Okay, that is documented, repeated data. Anywhere you go, another great place to look if you're interested in this kind of stuff is the Tennessee has done a 30-year meta-analysis where they have not only looked at this type of data, but they have looked at earnings of students, of adults in and around Tennessee, and they have traced earnings back to who people had or what type of teachers people had in kindergarten. And they can even now put a number value on people with higher paying jobs earning more money if they had a high performing teacher. Where this becomes important is if you of this student, if you get Danny and you know he has had a low performing teacher, and we'll start at the very beginning, we'll say kindergarten. If you know Danny Stedman had a low performing teacher in kindergarten, folks, for 1 year of being attached to a low performing teacher, it takes 2 years just to get that student back to where they were. And so as a principal, you have to be very, very knowledgeable of where these kids are and who they had, but then B, what teacher you get to address these deficiencies. And so I wanted to just kind of share that this is reading. It doesn't matter because you get the same types of things, the same type of data analysis in math. You get a low performing teacher. If both students start, or if similar students start in similar places, you're going to wind up with wind up in almost a 20-point gap between the students that had the high performing teacher versus the student that had the low performing teacher. So that's the one thing I wanted to tell you, just kind of show you. So teacher placement matters. Those of you in high school, you know that, Chris Lawrence may have been there for 20 years. He may have been teaching long enough to get the AP Shakespeare class 12. Yeah, you've earned that, fair enough, but do me a favor, I need you to pick up one class of English 9, because your local, and this is the biggest battle, and especially in high schools, and what many teachers don't understand is that your most vulnerable kids need your best teachers. And that's a more difficult conversation to have than you may think. It sounds great. It's a great soundbite. It looks good and in your school letterhead, but to actually have those conversations around, I need you to pick up this group of kids because they've been struggling. Not only that, I'm looking at their historical data. They've been struggling for a minute. And I need for you to pick up this class. So yeah, you can have AP Shakespeare 12, no problem. With those 11 kids that are on their way to Duke, probably not a problem. I'll let you have that, but I need for you to pick up this English 9. I don't want to teach freshmen, that's fine, but I need for you to do that because these kids are struggling. So that's the first thing. And again, that type of data, it doesn't matter where you look. That's from North Carolina. The Tennessee study is really fascinating because, like I said, they've gone beyond just looking at student assessment numbers. They've gone beyond that, and they've gone to look at what happens when you graduate high school, if and when you graduate college, and what happens when you make it to the workforce. And they have taken that and traced it all the way back to kindergarten teachers. And they can now put a value, an earnings value on the difference between people and jobs, and tracing it back to a high-performing kindergarten teacher and teacher and jobs, and who had a low-performing kindergarten teacher. So it really, really does matter. The second thing I wanted to share with you briefly, Dr. Stedman shared with you a bit, shared you the top part of this. This is a form that I actually use. I can tell you right now that in my current school, my teachers have never, so they've been given their EVAAS data, but they have never actually been forced to analyze their own data. And so this form, and I stole it from somebody else, but we designed it so that I give them step-by-step instructions on what to look at, what reports to pull. And then when you come down here, this is where it gets hard, because it forces teachers to go into these reports and look at, where your students making growth. How do you know that? What are the achievement levels? Why do you think students made progress, or why do you not think they made progress? And then we look at E, based on your past performance and given where you are right now, where would you like to see students progress better? When you look at F, given last year's data, what strategies would make a difference for students in the achievement level and subgroup? And right now, folks, in my current building, every teacher that I've given this to, and I only give it to teachers that generate EVAAS data, is, well, we've never done this before. And I just look at them and say, I know, but I need for you to go through this. Because I need for you to understand if you were, and I actually had, even as bad as my data is in my new building, I did have teachers that actually were blue, and I want them to know and understand why they were blue so they can do more of that. I have teachers that were green, but let's take a look at why you were green and what we can do to move from green to blue. And I have a couple of teachers that are red. And again, I want them to look at, okay, let's take a look at why you were red and how we can begin the process of moving from, either red to blue in a great year, or from red to green to blue. And so I can tell you that this is uncomfortable, especially if teachers aren't used to really analyzing their own data. It's easy to say, Dale, great job, you were this great job, and move on because he's blue. Tamara, you were red, I need you to do a better job. That's not feedback. That's not going to help her. And I want you to go through it. If you need assistance, come see me. And then what I have teachers do, and this is again what I am in the process of doing right now, and again, even in and around all the angst that's in the building, I have them complete this. Teachers will attach it to their mid-year PDP. And honestly, that's the frustration around getting EVAAS data as late as we get it. It's definitely autopsy data, but it's data that we need to analyze. And then what happens is we come back to it at the end of the year, and teachers then have some data they can use as a PDP goal for the coming year, and they can do that right there with EVAAS data so they can start thinking through exactly what they're changing, or what they need to change or what they need to do more of. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you it's uncomfortable, especially if there's not a history or a culture of having teachers look at that data, or in my case, and I'm going to use the word force to look at that data. And I know when I say force, it means I'm on the third gentle reminder of getting me that form. I sent out 11 and I've got 4. So I got 7 people that are ducking me, and they think that's because they're going to be allowed to duck me. But they're not. I need that data. I need my folks to understand where we are so that we can begin to make the necessary changes to move my school from where it is on the low performing list off that list. And we can only do that by making sure people understand where we are, why we are, and then what we can do to move beyond that. So that was kind of a lot in a short amount of time. Any particular questions? And I wasn't picking on anybody. So Tamara, Chris, much love.
No,
Please
but I want to say, Mr. Crawford, this is why Dr. Crawford is where he is. And Dr. Lamb introduced them at the beginning of the semester because he was named, he was the top performing principal in his district, and he was at a low performing school, or at a low socioeconomic school. And he's in a situation where when they hired him there, they saw his success rate. So, it's the exact opposite of Dr. Hamilton, but the good principal and the leadership is there, and they've got Dr. Crawford there for a purpose. Dr. Lamb, do you remember when both you and I had low performing schools?
I do.
Dr. Crawford, you know yourself, you got to work hard. It's not going to happen overnight like you told them. You have to work hard at it. And most of you, when you get to become a principal, most of you, your first job is not going to be where Dr. Hamilton is. Most of you are going to be where Dr. Crawford is now.
It was not my first job.
Right.
Exactly.
So, so it doesn't happen at the beginning. So, and Dr. Hamilton, you have to work very hard every day to keep it where it is, because of your success rate, there's probably more expected out of you for yourself and for the community that you work in. And so there's a lot of pressure with being a high performing school. And Dr. Revis, I didn't want to leave you out. Is there anything that you need to say before we give it back to Dr. Lamb?
Well, I would just like for everybody to understand a couple of things. Number one, as a school leader, you have to understand your data. You have to become comfortable talking and examining data for yourself, and talking and examining those data sets with your staff. But where the rubber meets the road, and both Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Crawford said this several times, it's having those difficult, candid conversations with teachers. That's the only way things will change. And as being a former district leader, I can tell you that's where most principals struggle the most. But you can do that. You will become more comfortable doing that the more you do it. But you have got to become comfortable in having those candid conversations, because this is about children.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Revis. Dr. Lamb.
Dr. Revis stole my thunder, and thank you for doing that. The whole point of this night is for you to understand that you've got to know your numbers for the purpose of having those critical conversations with your teachers. That's where we're headed this semester. That's what will end this semester, is a professional growth plan to grow your teachers. If you know anything about business or management, one of their gurus is Collins, good to great. Get the best people on your bus. And what if there is no best people? All of a sudden that model breaks down. What if they're like Dr. Crawford said? What if there are no people? You got 17 vacancies. Dr. Crawford remembers, I'm not trying to one up him, but when I went to Eastway, I had 37. I had 37 vacancies. What if you got nobody? Not only are they not, but the notion here is you don't always have the people that you want, but you got to make the people you got into the ones you want. And you do that by knowing your numbers, knowing how it works, being able to counter their arguments. So, well, nobody can get growth out of these kids. I don't know how that growth score got there. Nobody could make that with these kids. You have to be able to sit down in a calm and professional manner and say, this growth score is accurate for this kid. Your performance is accurate for what you did. Proficiency is about who we get. Growth about what we do with them. You have to understand that, and you have to be able to have those critical conversations. And you got to do more than just say do better. You know, that's not feedback. You know, that you've got to be able to tell folks what they need to do and where they need help and what that help is. That's what the professional growth plan that we're aiming for this semester at the culminating event of our second evidence, the APTEL this semester, is a professional growth plan for your school about what we need to do to get our teachers, the ones that we've got, to be the ones that we want. And that's the trick. So again, thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to try to buy task stream accounts early next week. We're doing role verification, as you know. The last day of that is tomorrow. And once all of our roles are verified, I'll see if we can get them bought. If we can get them bought, we'll do task stream on Thursday. But remember, when we buy those accounts, you'll be getting an email from Watermark, not from Gardner Webb, for you to register your task stream account. Watermark is the parent company. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. I'll put out an email when I buy those through the business office. I'll put out an email if I get that done early next week, and we'll talk about task stream on Thursday. If not, we'll talk about task stream the next Thursday. So, Dr. Stedman, I don't know what you have on tap Thursday.
Yeah, it's everything that you need to finish with on Thursday.
Well, hopefully I'll have those accounts. If not,
right.
I'll put that notice out, and then we'll skip this Thursday and go to the next. But I've got to buy those accounts first.
Okay.
And again, I have to wait until after verification, and then we'll do that. And then that'll be the last thing, and then we'll let you work for a while.
And just remember, when you get that email, you have how long before you need to do something?
48 hours.
You got 48 hours. So you need to, that's why you need to check your email, Gardner Webb email several times a day. And you got 48 hours to do whatever you got to do when that, but we'll send you an email. Dr. Lamb will let us know ahead of time.
Yep.
And we can send you a reminder email to look for it. Okay.
And I'll let you know when I bought them, and if we're going to meet next Thursday, or if it'll be the following Thursday, based on whether I get to purchase those on Monday or not.
Guys, didn't I tell you it would be worth your time tonight? I know you have learned a lot. It's been eye-opening. We will see you on Tuesday. Good night, everybody.
No.
Good night.
Right.